This is John with the Allergy Ed. It's been a while. Sorry about the long time between posts. I just haven't had time, honestly, and part of it's the lack of time. Part of it's not having much to say. I mean, there's a lot going on. There's a lot to say about what's going on, of course. If I'm just making observation on current events, but given my limited amount of time and not having anything especially original or interesting to say, to be honest, the last few weeks or months, I haven't had much to say, and I just haven't said much. But I saw this in on Drudge. Okay, so it was, report High Court overturns Roe v. Wade. Opinion leaks. And taking a look here, I just want to bring up a few things that this fall fits right into the narrative, to the big plan. Remember, we have, of course, the five big eclipses. Anybody who's followed the channel knows what I'm talking about there, the five eclipses. If you haven't followed the channel, the idea here is that the quote-unquote occult elite have a period of time here, starting with an eclipse in 2017 and ending with a second eclipse in the United States that goes directly across the United States in 2024, that there are five total eclipses between those 2017 and 2024 eclipses, and this period of time is a period of huge transition for them, which shortly after, it looks like, I say shortly after, relatively shortly after the 2024 eclipse in April, things really come to an end. There's a shot, IPICO-2 of the sun at what looks like the U.S., which is right behind the Rahor Kuat character. At the very end, you have the sun and the rings. And after the fifth ring or fifth eclipse, there's a shot taken directly at the U.S. that seems to finally bring it down. Now, along the way, the fourth of these total eclipses is the eclipse that leads up to the climactic events, and that is the eclipse that happened on December 4th, 2021. Up until that point, all indications were preparation for sort of the fireworks, if you want to call it that. Then the December 4th eclipse happens, and the skullduggery and IPICO-2 goes on the offensive. He stops drawing his hand back in preparation for attack. He goes forward, but there was a pause. And that pause happens before an attack. And what's interesting is we've seen many pauses. So, for example, December 1st through December 4th was a big watch time in 2021 because of this eclipse period, also because of some predictive programming in Back to the Future. And what we saw was the Omicron variants entered the U.S. first case on December 1st. And that was a major event, led to some changes in how everybody was viewing the pandemic at the time. But then shortly after that, it looked like, well, a pause, right? People started to say, hey, this variant's not as bad as we expected. It looks like we can relax a bit. We can start to limit lockdowns and gradually, pull back on mask mandates and vaccine mandates and things like this. And people started to feel a sense of a return to normal until we finally had the NATO Russia event in Ukraine. So Russia invades Ukraine in response to NATO provocations, trying to add new NATO members right on the border of Russia after long time had passed where that wasn't supposed to ever happen again, no new NATO members. And so this provocation, this NATO provocation happened. Then Russia gets involved with Ukraine, and NATO nations are arming Ukraine, and we're seeing what looks like the beginning of well, it is already a major war, but a very major war, possibly what people will look back to as the Third World War. And so now we've got the green light go, we're moving ahead again, and we're in an offensive period. They're actively moving towards the full, kill. Okay. Um, but one of the things that we had been watching, or I've been watching, I don't know if I actually mentioned it. I know commenters mentioned it uh, at some points before even the December 1 through 4 date range arrived. People said, hey, we need to be watching Roe v. Wade. Maybe this is going to be something that causes some serious problems because the Supreme Court is going to have some hearings. Let's see, when was it? On December 1st. So there's some arguments at the Supreme Court. So Roe v. Wade's future is in doubt after historic arguments at the Supreme Court. So again, same period of time, we have these arguments at the Supreme Court, and we didn't have a decision at the point. But it looked like people on the court, the justices on the court, were ready. They already signaled that they're ready to side with the state of Mississippi and overturn Roe v. Wade, allowing states to ban abortion. Of course, Roe v. Wade ban, overturning Roe v. Wade does not mean that abortion will be made illegal in the United States. It just means that states will have the right to decide whether it is legal or not. So this doesn't like insta make the United States a virtuous country, right? It just means that at least some states can say no. Uh, but the country itself still permits abortion when a state decides to allow it. Now, but the point is, December 1st was when the arguments happened. This is when the Supreme Court heard these arguments, and we got a pause after it. This is the type of a decision that has the potential to really stir people up. This is a heated topic. Uh, I don't understand the minds of people who think that abortion should be legal. I just don't get it. To me, it's just an abomination. Um, and for whatever reason, what is clearly immoral is something that many people are willing to fight for quite aggressively, and we'll have to see what their response is to this decision. But I'm bringing it up in the context of the chronology, the schedule here. This is a case where you actually have a December 1st action. It looks like things could start. We were even watching it a bit to see if maybe this would be one of the things that sets people off. And I heard the arguments, get a little bit of a pause here again. There's your pause. And now we're getting a decision several months later. And it looks like, if the opinion that leaked is going to reflect the actual decision of the court, Roe v. Wade will be overturned. And I guess up to 26 states are likely or almost guaranteed to ban abortion here in a short time after this decision is official. So let's see how people react. There's one part of me that looks at it and thinks, I don't see people reacting that much because people are pretty apathetic, and as long as they can, live their lives, they don't really do much, right? With any protesting, whether it's good or bad, they just don't do much. But we've had a lot of civil unrest in the U.S. the last few years. We've had the Black Lives Matter conflicts. We've seen, responses to police brutality. We've seen various forms of this sort of discontent with policy, government's decisions, behavior of people in power, where people are, in some cases, resisting. Generally, the people aren't violent, and it only gets violent when you have agent provocateurs involved from intelligence agencies of the government. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here, and certainly that's a possibility too. I don't know what's going to happen, but I do think timing here is interesting, given that the arguments were heard December 1st, and now we're getting this. That's the same date the Omicron was released. Omicron variant was found in the U.S. And so just something to watch. All right, take care.